Welcome to another broadcast of the Lorain County Commissioners' General Meeting. Unless otherwise announced, meetings are held Thursday mornings at 9:30 at the Lorain County Administration Building, 226 Middle Avenue, 4th floor, downtown Elyria. These are public meetings, and as always, you are invited to attend.
Commissioner Kalo has reminded me that it's 9:33, so would you stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, and welcome to the October 16th meeting of Lorain County Board of Commissioners. Commissioner Lori has the dog today, and I'm jealous.
I know, you're going to want this one.
Oh, yeah.
Come on. Little friendly black lab mix, a male. He will be available Saturday. Come here. Oh, my goodness. Look at that cutie. You want to talk? What a face. Somebody wants to put this little guy. Oh, he can't eat it. No, he can't eat it. Needs a bone. That's one of the things I like to have see happen at the dog kennel. Every dog that comes there, I like to see them have a bone to chew on, because I know my dog, especially when she gets nervous or bored, she likes to chew on things. So that's one of the things I'm going to be working on. Also, a puppy room at the kennel is another thing that I'd like to see out there. Right now, we're in the process of getting the two outdoor runs so these little guys can get some exercise. So if you're interested in a puppy, come down. They're cheap and they're cute, and we have lots to choose from. So, aw, it's a nature.
Thank you, Commissioner Kokoski. We have a proclamation in the matter of expressing best wishes to Sam Stamos on his retirement from the Lorain County Board of Commissioners. Whereas Sam Stamos announced his retirement from the Lorain County Commissioners effective December 31st, 2008, and whereas Sam is being recognized for more than 37 years of service to Lorain County, beginning in 1971 as oiler operator, and then was promoted in 1974 as a bridge tender on the Charles Berry Bascule Bridge, and whereas his good fellowship with working associates and county personnel has been enjoyable and he will be missed, and whereas Sam graduated from Admiral King High School in 1966, served 3 years in Germany and Korea with the United States Army, where he met his wife Donna. Now therefore it be resolved by the commissioners and staff that we express our appreciation to Sam for the fine service he has given to our county. Further be it resolved that we wish for Sam, his wife, and daughter Christina the very best of happiness, peace, and good health to be enjoyed throughout his retirement, and to continue collecting coins. We witness our signature this 16th day. I would like Sam to come forward together with his boss, Chuck Mackin. Perhaps each of them would like to say something. I'm sure they have some fond memories of his 37 years working for Lorain County.
Well, first of all, this was a very surprise to me. I thought I was coming here to sign some papers, and all of a sudden we come to the meeting room, and then this is really something. Thank you very much. I enjoyed working with the county for 37 years. I worked with many administrations, many county commissioners. I never had the pleasure of meeting Commissioner Kozlowski or Commissioner Kalo, but I'm very honored to meet you today. And of course, Mr. Cortez, I've had many meetings with him when I was union steward, and we got along pretty good. And he's a very good man. And then Commissioner Blair, I've known her, I've campaigned for her, I've had signs in my yard, and I just love everybody in the county, and I just feel that after 37 years, it's time to leave. And I want to thank all of you from the bottom of my heart.
Thanks, Sam.
No Rolex. Thank you. Wait, my batteries are going.
It works like the bridge.
That was cold. How we got late? I'm sorry. There we go. Thank you very much.
Congratulations, guys.
I'd like to say a couple things before we leave. I really appreciate this. I've known Sammy since I started in 1974.
Microphone.
Okay. I've known Sammy since 1974. He was actually bartender at my wedding, believe it or not. And that was even before I started working for the county. But you could never find a more dedicated employee. You know, you always see the bad things about the county employees, usually in the paper, so-and-so does this or whatever. But the county has been very fortunate, and I've been very fortunate in having a guy like Sammy down at the bridge. Very dedicated, and we'll miss him. And that's about it. I can tell you some stories, but I don't think this is the time or the place. So, but he will be missed, and I really appreciate the job you've done over the years. So,
And
thank
before he
you.
retires, Chuck, let's hope he gets one more chance to move that bridge up and down.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sam and Chuck.
Okay.
Yes,
All right.
okay. Now, Madam Clerk?
We'll go to presentations. Sharon Kleppel, Catholic Action Council.
Oh, she's here. Good morning, Sharon.
Well, I don't know how you follow that, but I'll try. Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Sharon Kleppel, and I am here representing the Catholic Action Commission, which is a member of the Ohio Coalition for Responsible Lending, a 246-member statewide coalition that successfully advocated the passage of House Bill 545, which reformed payday lending. The last time I presented to this body, the commissioners agreed to support a resolution in support of House Bill 45, and I want to thank you for that again. I'm here today, though, to again ask for your support. Today, we are urging all Ohioans to stand with us in preserving the significant consumer protections that were passed in House Bill 545. Ohio has one of the best laws in the country, and the payday lending industry is working overtime to deceive Ohioans in order to maintain their privileged predatory business. Yes on Issue 5 caps interest rates at 28% and preserves the reforms that were encased in House Bill 545. A no vote on Issue 5 is bad for our own local economy as it pulls local dollars out of the local economy and into the hands of national corporations. It is even more injurious to the countless citizens of Lorain County who have been tempted to become entrapped in this lending model that relies on repeat borrowing to the detriment of the borrower. A yes on Issue 5 lowers interest rates on payday loans from 391% to 28% annual interest and ensures that loans will still be available for people who need them, but at an interest rate comparable to rates charged by credit cards. Yes on 5 helps prevent Ohioans desperate for quick cash from falling into a cycle of high-cost loans and supports the development of alternative products. I ask for your support once again. On October 21st, as you know, the statewide County Commissioners Association will be releasing a press release in support of Issue 5. I'm asking you to go on record as well, by resolution or some other local means, in support of House Bill 545 and Issue 5, and urge our citizens to vote yes on Issue 5 to retain the needed reforms to payday lending that we have passed. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Commissioners, do you have questions?
No, but it's outrageous, the amount of interest they were charging people, and even 28% is high, but better than 391, huh?
You're absolutely right, and the social service agencies in the community have expressed, their concern as to what it has done. And to my amazement, we are the second largest payday market in the country.
Wow.
In our
Lorain
state.
County?
In our state.
Oh, the state of
State of
Ohio.
Ohio. Texas surpasses us. That's the only one.
Yesterday, we received a phone solicitation at my home from Lieutenant Governor Lee Fisher urging support of Issue 5. So if you have no further questions or comments, I will move that we again go on record in support of House Bill 545 and a yes vote on Issue 5 for the constitutional amendment.
Second that.
Any further discussion? Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Thank you again, Sharon, for
Sharon.
coming.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Do you want to just do the next?
Might as
domestic
well, we're on a
relations?
roll. I
Okay,
saw
Doug Metzger,
Doug.
Board Administrator, Domestic Relations.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning,
Doug.
Doug.
So, I'm back again,
Great.
as it seems I am every year. As you know, just for some brief background, the judges, our domestic court judges, do about 12,000 cases a year, and part of their responsibility is to oversee the detention home, and that unfortunately ends up being, like the jail, a very costly endeavor. We've had a tremendous increase in the population, particularly the girls' population this year. The girls, this morning, I called out this morning, and there were 23 girls in the detention home in the facility that's designed for 12. Our average DH population this year has been, for the girls, has been over 18. Last year it was over 12. So we've had about a 50% increase in the population. Besides the staff overtime, it also impacts on meals and all the things that go along with that. Now, we have taken overtime, as I've outlined in the past, and we continue to work on these. I've outlined some efforts that we've made to try to address some of these issues. We've had our relief workers in place. This is something that I've discussed with with your administrator. We have policies established that every incumbent position has to be justified. We all know that sometimes in public service there is an assumption that that person needs to be there. Well, that's an assumption that we can't afford. So every time somebody leaves in any position, I ask their directors to submit to me in writing a justification for that position to continue. The court did participate in your energy conservation program, which was done a couple years ago, and hopefully while it's not because of the cost of the utilities, which I don't need to tell you about, it's not been a real dollar savings, but hopefully it's been a dollar savings over what it would have been had we not participated. We've tried to manage our supplies, the just-in-time concept, so that we don't have an inventory of supplies and we don't have any wasted supplies. That assists in cutting down on costs. Unfortunately, because of the population and because of the nature of a 24-hour facility, you do have unplanned costs. Some of the unplanned costs are our equipment, such as a control room board, and radios, and anything that you're going to have in a secure facility. Those things come up. They're not a bulk of the cost, but again, taken in the context of a lot of costs that come up in a 24-hour facility, they are something that has to be addressed. We do have about 16 hours, as I've noted on the screen here, of overtime per day based on the, or relief time, based on the higher population in the girls' facility. When it gets over, when the facility gets over 25, which is the night ratio, or over 50 in the boys' facility, then you have to add another person on the night shift as well, so it goes to 24 hours. Vehicle costs. Mr. Cortez has been very, very kind in trying to work with us in terms of dealing with our vehicle costs across the board. But the detention home had one of its vehicles die on it, and we've managed to adjust, and make some arrangements to replace that vehicle with another vehicle, a used one, through your office, and that's been very much appreciated. But again, as you deal with older vehicles, it becomes a cost of repair, and we all know that. Staff retiring. We've had 5 staff retire this year, and obviously that comes out, even though typically there will be reimbursement to our accounts for that. There's that's a real cost to the county when you look at the payouts. With the 5 retirees, you have an outlay of about $50,000. So that's a cost. With the number of kids that we have in the detention home, despite the fact that the medical care is supposed to be provided, is the responsibility of the parent. Sometimes you have to, on an emergency basis, cover those some medical costs. So those are issues that we have to deal with. The original the allocation for this year, which as you can see, you increased, and we appreciate that, came in the form of salaries, and that covered some of it. We are looking at transferring. If you look at the next slide, would talk about a projected shortfall. We're going to transfer as much as we can into which would account for about $32,000. We're planning on being able to transfer out of other accounts, other general fund accounts, because as I've said to you before, in years past, we can't utilize some of our other funding for secure facilities. We're going to continue to look at all the normal practices that we have, the programming that we have, and see how we can adjust and adapt what we're spending to accommodate the amount of dollars, the public dollars that are available. We will continue to work with our bargaining unit, which, as Mr. Cortez knows, we have a bargaining unit now in our secure facilities that has a contract, and we'll have contractual obligations for next year, as we did this year. And we do, as I've indicated, expect to turn general fund dollars back in several accounts, but because of the nature of the way the books have to be closed out in early December, as we all know, then it doesn't allow the easy transfer at the last minute. So we have to kind of plan for what we're going to do, and then just turn the money back to you after the money's after all the bills have been paid, basically. I've got a breakdown of the projected detention home shortfall in each of the equipment, in each of the categories, rather, salaries, PERS, equipment, utilities, and listed as our request, as per my letter to you, of $206,000. And of course, that assumes all the transfers that we put in to cover that other shortfall will be approved, the quick turnaround of retirement payouts, and no additional unforeseen costs. Obviously, if they're unforeseen, you can't anticipate them. So at that point, I would just ask that you approve the request that we have for the $206,000 to get us through the end of the year. And I would be happy to entertain any questions that you have on that.
If I could, Doug, we're required by Ohio Revised Code to have the detention home, correct? It's not.
Yes.
It's no different than the jail. This is just for youth. Okay, so we get that clear. We don't have a choice but to fund it to keep it open 24/7. All right, and you guys do a good job over there. Jim, where would we find the $206,000 at?
Well,
Rainy day account?
probably we were at the bottom of the barrel. Now we're turning it over and looking underneath it.
Can you flip that back one screen, Doug, with
I
the
got you.
breakdowns?
Without being contraire, I'm a little concerned with the $116,000 in the salary accounts, since we increased those salary accounts at the beginning of the year to account for required increases with regard to the union contract and other employees receiving a general across-the-board wage. Am I correct, Lisa? So I'm just sort of surprised at the $116,000. Is that?
I think what he said was,
I-
it's overtime costs. Any chance we could hire some people so we wouldn't incur overtime?
Well, actually, I've done a number of things over the course of the year, and I think it's probably a good opportunity that Jim gave me to elaborate on that. We have attempted to, in order to cut down on overtime, we've not only used the relief workers, we have, at one point, we transferred the girls over into the boys' facility to eliminate the, while the boys' population was lower, in order to cut down on the overtime, because it was the girls' population that was high. Unfortunately, when the boys' population went back up, we had to transfer them back, so that only bought us a couple weeks' worth. We have actually reviewed our staffing patterns and when overtime occurs, and actually hired people into there which were cheaper than the overtime costs. We've worked with our bargaining unit to continue to allow relief workers to participate in bargaining unit work, so that we could again minimize the cost of the necessity of having those staffing ratios met. So it's it is strictly an excessive amount of population, overtime, additional relief time. It's just a lot of it is manpower. But there is also the cost when the population goes up. There's also the cost associated with, if you have 50% more girls, then you have 50% more meals, and you have 50% more supplies, and you have 50% more everything that goes along with that. And while that's not the bulk of it, it is the salaries, and Jim's absolutely right. It is still a concern. It is still a cost that we incur.
Yeah, you and I have had these talks, so I just wanted to get some explanation out there with regard to that. And I much rather, in some respects, pay overtime than to increase staffing, because the benefits cost to us, and the loading on the benefits is so expensive. Right now, it's probably running about $14,000 a year if the top end plans are selected before they even start.
I have
So-
a question, Doug, and not to interrupt you, Jim.
Yeah.
You're averaging 16 hours of overtime through the first 3 quarters of the year?
It was through the first half. What always happens, if you look at a breakdown of the DH populations, June, July, and August go down below that. So we did have a small drop in July, but even that drop, for example, in 2007, the girls' population averaged about 8, which leaves you with 1 staff person. It was over 12, which means you have to have that additional staff person in July of this year. We've not gone, it's gone down. It's still gone down in the same pattern that it normally does seasonally, but it's did not go down to where it would not incur overtime costs.
Okay.
So it's been it's just been a bad situation to add to your other bad situations in terms of finances.
Are these relief workers considered part-timers who do not receive benefits?
Correct. And that's part of the well, I hate to use the word again, it sounds redundant, but it's probably the benefit of not having, and part of what we worked out with the union to have the relief workers, because it allows us to be more flexible in terms of not having to commit ourselves to the costs associated with overtime and full-time employment that you guys end up incurring, which as he indicated was about $14,000 per full-time employee.
Mr. Cortez, I heard Commissioner Kale ask where you might find this money.
I've already moved money around to accommodate this request, so
Can you tell us where
From
you
the
moved
rainy
it
day
from?
fund again?
Yeah,
Is
since
it
we're the
raining?
ones
Is it
that
pouring
make
down
the
rain?
decision, just tell us what's going on.
Like Mickey
we
Mouse
did-
and a magic wand, just let us know where it came from, I guess.
We did move money from the rainy day fund. We also have recaptured some money from accounts that, as you remember, Commissioner, we talked a little bit about moving money from the health care account just a week or two ago. So we've been collapsing some of those accounts that apparently we're going to have funds available at the end of the year over the last 2 or 3 weeks. And we've, of course, with these requests were coming, Board of Elections, domestic, we know we have another one following from
Bless you.
from Common Pleas. And so Lisa and I went through the accounts and we looked at those that had some surplus balances and we've moved them. But the biggest bulk of it did come from the rainy day fund when we moved almost $1 million.
And what's left in the rainy day fund?
About $1.7 million, I think. $1.8 million?
Yeah, I was gonna say, it was $1.8 million before.
Okay.
So we're going to have the pleasure of Mr. Luby next week?
Well, I don't know about the pleasure of it, but I think he'll be here. Hiya, Timmy.
One of the things Doug had mentioned was the payouts for retirements. I thought that came out of our fund and not their budget.
The PERS?
No, for
We pay that
payouts.
initially, Commissioner. We pay it initially, and then you
reimburse.
reimburse.
Okay.
Are you talking about somebody retired
Yes.
completely for vacation and sick leave settlement?
Right.
Yes.
Yes, they actually paid out of their accounts first, and then we reimbursed them. This way, it used to be a few years ago, there was some surpluses in the salary account, so they would wait to the end of the year, and we would estimate what was going to be left, and then we would transfer. If they paid out 50, but they only needed 35 to get to the end of the year, they only requested the 35. Rather than we give it to them, they give it back to us, save some paperwork. But quite frankly, we're exhausting these salary accounts. That's not going to work very well anymore as a practice. They pretty much are going to need what they pay out pretty rapidly.
Right.
Anything else, Commissioners?
No.
Did you put this appropriation in with the regular board business?
I don't believe we put it through yet. Do you have it? Okay, we can deal with it at the end of our business. I need an executive session. We can come back and pass resolutions.
Well, we haven't passed the appropriations yet, so if she's got it, if she gives it to the clerk, we can put it in the regular order of business.
That would be just fine, because I have another one here that we need too, so we can put them all.
We didn't ask
please.
about your other one.
Yeah.
Well, we need the other one. It's a little one, so I was aware of it this morning, so we need to pass that one too.
Thank you, Doug.
Thanks,
Thank you
Doug.
very much, Commissioners.
Thank you, Doug. Tell the judges we said hello.
Well, it doesn't say what this is for.
Could be an advertising bill so we can advertise for our community development position. It got overlooked.
Oh,
It was short
Yep.
on some advertising dollars.
Commissioners, just to capitalize upon a little bit of the discussion points from the presentation, we have been moving a lot of vehicles around with these departments, and Domestics has been really good with working with us. We've been sending some of our fleet vehicles over for their use that still had some service life left in them, but they're a little tired too. We're running out of the ability to do that with fleet vehicles, and that's becoming an issue too. Sometimes we don't see those costs directly with regard to providing those services, but we're still going to be in a critical situation with vehicles. We only have so many, and a lot of them are reaching the end of their service life. When I say the end of their service life, that usually means that they're putting their foot through the floorboard.
so what are you suggesting to
I'm just
us?
letting you know that we're going to probably need vehicles at the end of the year, too, to be able to accommodate additional needs within the departments. There's only so many fleet vehicles, I can only move so many of them back into these departments. The only time we take a fleet vehicle out of service is when the engineers folks, declare it unsafe and unfit to be on the road and shouldn't put any more money in it. We've had about 5 or 6 of them this year already that we had to retire from the fleet, but there'll be more to come on that. But those are like the costs that we don't see directly all the time. Just something else coming down the road, sorry.
Maybe relook at, instead of offering a fleet vehicle to an employee, reimbursement for mileage, rather than, and it would take care of some parking issues also.
Well, it could, and we've looked at it before. We can certainly look at it again. Each time we looked at it, we found it to be a little bit more costly to reimburse mileage with the administrative burden at that place, and then who was going to be authorized, who wasn't, secondary insurance on their vehicle, and that's why we have a very limited amount of people that are authorized to drive their own vehicle on county business because of the insurance liabilities that follow through on use of own vehicle. But I'm certainly we can sit down and look at it again. It's never good to say we looked at it 5 years ago, so we shouldn't. But I can start doing some kind of cost comparison for discussions later in the year, Commissioner.
Okay, thank you.
Good thought.
Want to go
Thank
right to
you.
Transportation Center now?
Absolutely.
Okay, Karen.
Come on, Karen.
I'm here today to give you guys an update as far as where we're at with the Transportation Center and where we need to go. First of all, I'll give you a little background, what we've done already. We have completed Phase 1, which included the asbestos abatement, interior demolition, exterior masonry repairs, and a new roof with a 30-year warranty. That cost approximately $1.5 million to complete. And our next stop is Phase 2. Phase 2 consists of work on the first and second floor and also on the east elevation of the building. The first floor work has to do with the waterproofing of the tunnels, which we should be receiving a lease agreement with Norfolk Southern here shortly so that we can use that tunnel space for storage. And also fitting out the first floor for Lorain County Transit Administrative Offices. This is an architect's rendering of the first floor. They've got a general idea of what we need to do here. We still need to do the design work and that kind of thing. But it does have a waiting room space, ticket counter, office spaces for transit, and there's also locations along the corridor into the main rotunda area where there will be display cases so that we can put museum-type pieces in there to meet one of our requirements for our federal funding. Second floor is basically to fit out that second floor space for future leasing. There is no county department that would be in the second floor at this time. It's just going to be a vanilla box ready to go. It does include the elevator, which we would have to have for ADA compliance. And also the exterior east elevation work. And the way this works, you'll see a little picture here. We've taken the back of the building and made it the front of the building. And the reason for this was for the parking and easy access to the buses and the hub space. So what they're doing is taking that east elevation, adding a couple of entrances and some windows to make it look a little bit more attractive to folks. We still will maintain our original front entrance, but that would be our ornamental entrance. It's really not accessible by handicapped people. Let's see. Our estimated ticket price for Phase 2 is about $3.2 million. The majority of that cost is the renovation of the first floor rotunda area and the grand meeting room. It's over $1 million to do that renovation work. In addition to the federal funds we've already received, we've recently requested and have received notification that we received some new grant dollars to cover the security costs that would be associated with this project. We're breaking down each line item here as far as how much each thing costs, so we have a total hard cost of about $2.4 million. And then our soft costs, which are the architect's costs, are broken down here for you to review. It's about 8.7% of the construction costs. Our boarding schedule for Phase 2 is to complete the design phase within 13 weeks, bidding phase 4 weeks, contract preparation 4 weeks, construction phase 26 weeks. Total time is 47 weeks. So if we start Phase 2 before the end of October, we can have the entire Phase 2 completed by fall of 2009. And at completion, we will be able to move Lorain County Transit and Greyhound administrative offices into the building, so it will be ready to be used. Our next slide kind of gives you an outline of our funding. As I said earlier, we've already spent about $1.5 million of our federal dollars. We have 4.8 left. Out of that 4.8, the federal share is 3.8. Our matching funds come from the purchase of the building and the property. So we're not using any additional funds. This is money that we've already spent. And we are able to, when we apply for reimbursement, we show that as our local match, and then they give us our reimbursement back. Our future route is Phase 3, which would finalize the exterior parking lot and landscaping and be ready to actually have our transit buses hub from that location. Phase 4 is the train platforms. This is where we've always had some issues with this particular project. We've got a slight detour from our original plan. Originally, we were going to be using the tunnels for passenger access. What we found out is Norfolk Southern, who is the owner of those tunnels, is not in agreement to allow us to use that space. The cost that it would the cost we would incur to use those tunnels not only includes the waterproofing, which we have to do anyway for storage, but it also would include diverting freight traffic around our construction, which would have to happen on top of the rails. We would have to pay Norfolk Southern personnel to be present during that construction. There's some unforeseen conditions that we may run upon when we try to open up the old stairwells and things. So there were a lot of unknowns there, and Norfolk Southern didn't want any liability, didn't want to have to inspect the tunnels, because their tracks are, right above there. If there was any problems, we would have had to assume that liability. So, with some creative thinking, we've come up with what we refer to as the Tower Addition Plan. And that plan basically is to construct a tower, would be on the northeast corner of the building. And in that tower would be the stair and elevator needed to elevate the passengers up to the track level. I've been working diligently with Amtrak, almost on a weekly basis. Amtrak is definitely on board to assist us with this. They're going to work with Norfolk Southern to get approval for the passenger crossing. They're going to assume their passengers' liabilities. They are going to do all the preliminary engineering services that we originally thought Norfolk Southern was going to bill us for. Amtrak is going to assume those costs on the county's behalf. I have had a very good conference call yesterday with Amtrak. They're going to make that initial contact with Norfolk Southern on our behalf today. And then this afternoon, I have another conference call with Amtrak again to the Ohio Rail Development Commission to ask for additional grant funds to cover the cost of this tower addition. They're pretty confident that there's going to be money available so that we can actually get that money and complete the project. This rendering actually shows you how the passengers would access that elevated rail. Basically, all we're doing is lifting them up to that embankment wall, the rail level, and then they're going to be able to cross over. It's very simple, very easy to do. And with that note, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Twining, who's going to explain the economic benefits.
Good morning, Commissioners. Excuse me. Karen has given me the combustion portion of the presentation. She's covered a lot of the first phase. Let me just remind you that Phase 1 work has been completed. She's given you the dollars. The local match was money that we had already spent in property acquisition. It worked out to about 81% federal dollars used for this project, less than 20% locally, and we want to highlight that, but that's the work that's done. What we're here today is to talk about Phase 2, the next logical step, and that is to create the necessary offices to move transit and Greyhound into this facility so we can begin to get utilization out of that. That budget Karen has shared with you, it's a little over $3 billion. What I've been asked to really clarify to the residents so that they know that $3 million, once we churn that in our local economy, and as we know, the economy is tough right now. Contractors are looking for work, and so we're hoping to get a very competitive price. This project, because it's using federal dollars, will be subject to Davis-Bacon wages, which will guarantee living wages for those working on the project. And more importantly, we need to remind ourselves that of the employees, whether they're from the county or outside the county, typically, maybe not every day, but a lot of the days, will eat in our area or shop to buy certain goods while they're leaving work or before they get to work, so they will spend money within Lorain County itself. Those that live here will continue to buy refrigerators, pay their mortgage, and be able to buy other household belongings. And we estimate on this project, given the nature and the funding, that $3 million will equate to about $10 million that churns over in our county. And we think it's an important item to point out. We've heard a lot about Main Street this year, that a project like this, when government makes the improvements, we get two bangs for the buck. One, we get the public improvements that's necessary, and then we get the churning effect that is a result of our public improvements. The last item that I had to talk about was location. That's, I guess I've really talked about it. The two phases together would equate, one that we've already done, and the final one will equate to about a $16 million churning effect here in Lorain County. So this is the bigger of the two phases, and we think that we're probably really going to see about a $10 million reinvestment in the county as a result of this.
Okay, now, once again, I'm not asking for any money. Back in 2005, the county did enter into a contract with the architect. That contract basically says before we can move into the next phase, I need to come to the board and get their permission to proceed. So that's why I'm here today, is just to ask for a resolution approving the scope of work, which we've given you today, and also authorization to proceed with Phase 2.
Commissioners, I may remind you that our last Phase 2 that we presented some time ago, we didn't have enough funding the way the Phase 2 was structured to move forward. And Commissioner Kokoski, you had some concerns at that point with regard to the funding scenarios and schemes that we were going to deploy. So we went back to the drawing board and we reconfigured the phases to make sure that we had adequate resources to first pay for a second phase and then get some kind of outcome in Phase 2 that would allow us to use the space. So that was critical to us because we didn't want to do a massive phase and then still not be able to use the train station. I feel like, some days I feel like this is like quicksand to me. It's like my Waterloo. I've been working on this project for 8 years with Karen. It's like it's been a long haul, and Ron came to it about 6 years ago and has been with us, and it's because of trying to match federal funding without using many additional local dollars, we've really struggled. Plus, a few of our earmarks are starting to get a little bit stale, and I'm concerned that if we don't convert them to grants and do draws on them, that they'll start redirecting those funds, because funds are very, very tight, and they're looking at what people are doing with their projects at the federal level. If they don't see any activity, they could reach in and say to us that, you've had a sufficient time to move your project. We need to redirect this if some other folks are ready to go with their projects. And I want to make sure that we bring those resources back to Lorain County. And so I want to update our legislators on where we're at with those earmarks if we start Phase 2 so that they know we're actively engaged. And then hopefully by late next summer, we'll be seeing some results of the federal dollars brought here for this project. That still leaves us short for Phase 3 and Phase 4. And I'm a little bit disappointed to tell you we have not gained additional support or earmarks now for probably 2 or 3 years. We keep asking, we keep putting ourselves in the queue and in the hopper, but we haven't seen that funding. I think we may be to do some of the parking lot needs. We will have about $900,000 left over after Phase 2.
Yes.
If I remember right, it was about $750,000 or $800,000 for the parking area. And that's old cost, though. I mean, that's based upon data from 3 or 4 years ago. So we still may not have enough money, but at least we have some in the pot that we can start some of that exterior parking area. But I think we're going to need an additional probably $2 or $3 million to see the complete functionality of the project to conclusion, and hopefully we'll be able to gain some additional support. I think it'll be encouraging when we start Phase 2 to our supporters in Washington to come back and work hard for us to get some additional money. It's hard to ask for money when you got so much money sitting on the shelf that we could be doing things. So I'm encouraged by that, and I think it's time to move forward. And to the people who have been enthusiastically supporting this project, it hasn't been dead. We've been working really hard on this. The biggest problem we ran into, as soon as we reconfigured the whole project, then we lost the ability to use the tunnels, and we had to go back to the drawing board and work with Norfolk Southern. While they've been a okay partner, they are more bureaucratic than any other government organization I've ever worked with regard to getting anything done. And those tunnels have been a huge, huge issue, and I think we're finally reaching conclusion. I gotta also say that Jerry's been in the mix with us on the team, and you've been working with the Norfolk Southern and working through those issues also. So, you know, there's been a lot of work on this, and there's been due diligence, and we haven't lost track of the project, and it's been a real struggle to get it to this point and be able to launch Phase 2, so hopefully you'll support this and we'll move forward.
And let's not forget all the vandalism and theft
Oh,
going
yeah.
on. So now that we have the lighting up there and cameras, we haven't seen any problems.
Why, they stole everything they could. We did. Thank you for pointing out, I forgot all about it. As fast as we put the copper up, they were taking it down. We did get the place boarded up and secure, and some of it was replaced, but I think we left some of it off this time,
Yes.
and so that once we enter Phase 2, we did get an insurance settlement,
Yes.
and we received, outside of our deductible, we received compensation back to pay for both incidents that occurred out there, but it wasn't worthwhile because we couldn't put it, even with the cameras and stuff, they're still going to come down there and take that copper off the roof, so we'll be doing that, I think, probably in the summertime when we're going to have the building occupied a bit. My concern is that they're so brazen to come there, even if the building's occupied, it's not occupied at night. And I still have some concerns about them coming down there, even when the building's occupied, and taking that copper off the roof. So we'll have to probably come up with some kind of contingency plan to deal with that. It's unfortunate that we find ourselves in such difficult times where, you know, people are compelled to do that, but we'll deal with it.
Well, just so that the board is aware, as Commissioner Kokoski has said, we did install lights and cameras on the roof. And those lights are motion sensor. So when somebody walks on the roof, the lights come on, and you're on candid camera. You know, we can view that film, turn it over to the sheriff's department.
Karen's trying to intimidate any would-be predators that may be coming forward. This is a good project, Commissioners, and it's been a long-term project. Commissioner Blair started this and spearheaded this, and then this administration with Commissioner Kalo and yourself, and Commissioner Koski, have supported it. Again, no new local dollars are required, and the match will come from dollars invested in the project in 2000 and 2001.
That was my question. Phase 1 and Phase 2, we were able to use acquisition of property as the local match every time. I mean, when are we going to run out of using that over and over again?
We should be able to complete the whole project without any additional local match.
Okay.
We have, I believe we have about almost $900,000 that was in the project from purchase of property and the things that were done that we're using as a local match, which would leverage us about an $8 million project. Mr. Twining, you're standing off to the side there. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's very accurate.
Okay. So hopefully we'll be able to complete the whole project.
With that first initial buy?
I hope so.
Okay.
Okay, I don't want to, you know, we have several things that we still need to do, and I don't want to promise you, but it'll be very, very close, Commissioner.
All Aboard Ohio is coming to Lorain County for their whatever meeting on November the 8th. Karen is going to lead a tour at the train station again. They're very interested in what's happening there, and I think that the interest by the Ohio Rail Development Commission speaks to the fact that people from outside of Lorain County are interested in what's happening with rail development here in Lorain County, and we're part of their plan.
Well, and let's point out again, because we don't get an opportunity to talk about this project too much, that this corridor lays on the proposed high-speed rail network. It
The Ohio Hub Plan.
And it can be hubbed into the commuter rail eventually. There is a way of doing that. But strategically, if we see the high-speed rail between the major cities in Ohio, Elyria sits right on that hub and goes right through there. And we want to be positioned to make sure that we get that service here in Elyria, in Lorain County, so that people don't have to go to Cleveland to take high-speed rail.
We want to make sure the train stops here. Any other comments or questions? Madam Clerk, I'll move for approval to proceed as Karen requested.
Second.
Anything further? Blair?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Thank you, Karen, Ron, and Jim. Nice job.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Okay. Number 1 under resolutions. Job and
We got
Family.
work to do.
Yeah.
You can leave.
Job and Family Services bills?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Investments?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Appropriations?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Transfers?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
No advances, no repayments, requisitions?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Travel
Aye.
expenses?
Well, I'll move first.
Trying to make up the starting late today,
1
huh?
through 8.
Second. Yeah, 1 through
Blair?
8.
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Bills?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Under the Commissioners, authorize various personnel actions as indicated on the summary for employees within jurisdiction of Lorain County Commissioners.
Mr. Cordez.
Thank you, Madam Commissioner. I would like to request an executive session at the conclusion of our regular board meeting today to specifically discuss potential new hires at the county home and a matter of union negotiation. Both subjects are permissible under the Sunshine Law in executive session, and I think we'll probably need about 45 minutes. Thank you.
Approve and waive the reading of the same for Lorain County Commissioners meeting minutes for October 9, 2008.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Notify Lorain County Safe Harbor, Inc., DBA Genesis House of Shelter for victims of domestic violence. They are eligible for release of funds in the estimated amount of $78,000 collected as part of marriage license fees and annulments, divorces or dissolutions fees pursuant.
So moved.
Second.
Sorry.
Discussion.
Jeez,
Ms.
oh,
Blair?
Pete.
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye, I had a question. Are the fees for the divorces and the fees for marriage licenses the same or different? Just out of curiosity, because
You pay more to get divorced because it's worth it, Commissioner.
Any other questions?
oh, never mind.
Hey, Doug. Right, Doug? Don't you guys have divorces in your court?
He's hiding behind
Are
his
the, are the
agenda.
fees higher for divorces than they are for marriages, Doug?
I would be happy to check into that for you and get that.
Okay, thank you.
Jerry has an answer.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, they're way high.
Way higher? Oh, okay.
I told you.
All right.
The,
checking.
What did they put in the water today?
I don't have any, that's why I'm doing this.
Marriage is usually, Lori?
Yeah, I knew. Well, was my question, because marriage licenses were way down compared to divorces. I didn't know if more people are getting divorced than married, or the fees were just a lot higher, so.
Well, marriages can be done in like an hour. Divorces take about 2 years.
Yeah. Been there, done that.
Is it worth it?
Oh, yeah.
This is the Commissioner's Comedy Hour. Madam Clerk, would you continue, please?
I will. Authorize compensation payment to Alan Wax, City of Elyria bailiff, in the amount of $251.23, which reflects the county's 2/5 share.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Set the amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission and authorize necessary tax levies and certify them to the county auditor.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Accept the proposal with Delta Dental for the county's dental benefit plan, TPA, the county's third-party administrator, effective January 1st, 2009 through December 31st, 2011, with a 3-year renewal option January 1st, 2012, based upon the review of the prosecutor.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
Was this added on? I don't remember. I'm going to comment on it, because I didn't get a chance to read the
That's-
background on this.
Sure, great, Commissioner. The Delta will be a new company for us, so we'll be making a change. Should be fairly blind to about 98% or 99% of our employees, because Delta's network is bigger than the current network, but there's a potential for a few people to be affected with whether they're a participating dentist or not in the plan. We're able to save, under the new plan, $98,000 to the plan cost, to our good. And under the basic scenario that's been presented, it should be about $48,000 savings out of pocket to the plan participants in lower co-fees. So, rounding the numbers, we're anticipating each year $150,000 of joint savings under the plan. I was a little bit I really didn't want to switch carriers. We've been with the carrier for about 6 or 7, well, maybe even more than that. It may go back to my first life with the county that we've been with them, and they've done a fairly good job. But we're ringing the chamois on these healthcare costs, and I've been in here a couple times with you to inform you of different changes in structural things. There's still a little water left in it, but it's getting pretty dry. So the $150,000 a year in savings may not sound like a lot in an $18 million plan, but every nickel's going to be counting more and more these days.
Okay. David's at the mic.
I just had a question. It appears to me that either this renewal option is for a 4th year, or that it looks like it's 3 years plus a 4th, or else it's 2 years and the end date is.
Yeah, let me explain it. The contract is still in the prosecutor's office. Normally, I like to adopt the proposal and have the contract around the same time, but we're working on the contract. But we're looking very seriously at starting our enrollment soon with our benefit year, and we're starting to push some time frames that I'm getting uncomfortable with. And because it's a transition, we have to change over 6,000 users. It takes a little bit of time to do that, with printing new cards and issuing new cards, and so I wanted to get the proposal adopted so the company understands that we're going with them while we work out the nuances of the legal part of the contract. That said, the contract is for 2 years, and the 3rd year is a renewable. It's an option year.
So that should be 2010 in that?
2009, 2010 will be the fixed 2 years.
It's 2011.
The 3rd year will be optional, though. We always do 2 with a 3rd optional, but it is a 3-year contract. But we have to exercise the option in the 3rd year.
Okay, so
But we'll be,
not an option for a 4th year.
No.
But it's
under the Ohio,
within the 3 years, 1 year's an option.
David, under the
That's-
Ohio
I just-
Revised Code, Section 9.8, it's under the miscellaneous section. We're only allowed to do 3 years without going back to market for competitive bidding of these type of services. So we're precluded from anything bigger than 3 years.
So it's basically including an option for a 3rd year rather than with an option for a 3rd.
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
Anything else? Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Under EMA, create Fund 3000 State Emergency Response Commission. EMA currently handles these funds through the outside checking account for LAPC. The county will now have it on their books.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Under Job and Family, authorized purchase of service agreement with American Red Cross Larry to provide CPR and first aid training classes to Lorain County Type B child daycare providers and substitutes for state fiscal year '09 in the amount of $13,000 effective retroactive to September 1st through June 30th, 2009, and authorized director to execute on behalf of the board with the prosecutor's approval as to form.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Under Domestic Relations, approve the funding request of Domestic Relations Court of $22,613 from the Juvenile Accountability Block Grant for continuation of the Merit Project 2. This encompasses the court's restitution and public schools attendance program. Cash match is $2,513. It was requested from the county general fund.
And where do we have that $2,500?
We have it. I verified it before it went on the agenda, so we have a position where it needs to be.
So moved.
Second.
Anything further? Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Approve and enter an agreement on behalf of Lorain County Juvenile Court and Board of Trustees of Penfield Township for the continuation of operations planning to establish a location for the children in the residential facilities to go to the event of a disaster or emergency.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Approve addendum number 2 for the cancellation of the bid for LOR 571021 Elyria Grafton Road, Eden Township. The bid is being canceled due to unexpected difficulties and delays in obtaining required right-of-way approvals and permits to construct project from ODOT.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Cortez, County Administrator?
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Don't have too much this morning, just congratulations to the 2 commissioners on being endorsed by the Chronicle. I know everybody reads the Chronicle, but just in case they didn't, they were very positive comments on both of you, and congratulations on that, and I'm sure that the Morning Journal will see their way clearly to doing the same thing.
Hear that, Jeff?
He doesn't have control
So,
of that.
With that, I'd like to remind you about the executive session, and also that the college is having their big Family Fest on Saturday. It's a good day to come out and support your community, support the college. It's once a year, and it's a great time to tour deeper parts of the college that you may never get to be in. So if you have an opportunity, come on out. On behalf of the College Foundation, I'm making that invite to everybody. I'll be out there working with Med Flegner and Mike Sherman and a whole bunch of the fellows, so we'll be doing our thing out there. We'd love to see everybody come out. And that concludes my remarks for me. Thank you.
Mr. Ennis, Assistant County Prosecutor.
I just want to make one comment with respect to the Transportation Center. Karen and Ron probably have done about 98% of the work. Nevertheless, I don't mind sharing in the credit for what we did. So, other than that, I have no other report.
Commissioners report.
Well, this was a busy week for Ted and I, spending a lot of time together in the evenings at Candidates Night. Thursday, we were out in Wellington. Monday, we were in Oberlin. Last night, we were in Lorain at CHIP. So we met a lot of nice people, and it was a good turnout just about everywhere we went. I came across this flyer, and it's for free services for all combat veterans and their families. Things like individual counseling, group counseling, marital counseling, spouse support counseling, bereavement, sexual trauma, substance abuse, and other benefits. And it's located at 1600 Broadway at Goodwill Industries. And it says on Thursdays from 9 to 4. I did call the toll-free number, and they said they also have things available on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, but you need to call this number if you're interested in getting some help from the Goodwill Industries. And that number is, and if Hal, if you could put this up on the screen too, it's 866-570-0117, and ask for Gilbert Camargo, Camargo. So any veterans out there that could use some assistance, that's another way for you to get some help. And that's my report.
You're right, Commissioner, busy week. After the Wellington Candidates Night, myself and Judy Nedwick joined Joyce Parks, Betty's assistant, at the 4-H annual dinner. Had the pleasure of sitting with the Zeck family, and they honored Wilma Zeck 55 years of volunteerism with 4-H. Great lady. Also, we had Nowaka here in Lorain this past Friday. I'll let Commissioner talk about that because it's her bailiwick. And I went to Oberlin College for the Sustainability Conference. Speakers from the Fund of Economic Development, very proactive in Oberlin, going towards alternative energy. So I was very nice presentation. I got a chance to speak to members of the PUCO out there, and to city council members, and to Eric Nornberg. I almost forgot his name, the city manager. Also attended this week, Sheffield Village Mayor Hunter had a business conference at 7:30 morning at Quaker Steak and Loop, hosted it. Great turnout, about 60 people going over the plans in the village and what's been accomplished so far. The mayor's met with most of the businesses. He was talking about the Route 611 widening, which is coming up. Also got to attend the Volunteer Guardian Luncheon this week, which honored Frank Horvath for his 15 years of leading the charge on that. Guardians for adults who don't have anyone else. It was a very nice presentation. And got to, trying to make sure I didn't miss anything else. Oh, Lorain City Schools last night before CHIP had a fundraiser at the Rose Cafe in Lorain with Al Bubba Baker from former Cleveland Brown and businessman in Avon. Very inspirational about all the help he's doing and how important education is. So that was my week. I'm ready to kick it off again today.
You make me tired just listening. Next Tuesday, the 21st, the commissioners are supposed to view the Roth Ditch in Columbia Township. Maybe we'll get rid of this long overdue problem that needs some attention. There's all kinds of things going on next week, as there was last week, so I applaud my fellow commissioners. It's not my turn to run, thank goodness.
I enjoy going to them anyway.
Well, I do too, except that I'm just glad it's your turn and not mine.
2 years for you, Commissioner.
Thanks a lot.
I guess happy Bosses Day.
It is?
Yeah, one last comment.
my present.
On behalf of all the
Here's my
staff
present.
here.
Today.
It is Bosses Day, so happy Bosses Day to all the commissioners.
Did you bring us chocolate?
Tony and
I
Bobby
have
Mounds.
We will. I'm sure that we'll find something for you when you go into executive
Yeah, I'll
session.
bet. A dirty sock.
Well,
I know you.
board correspondence?
I think he's trying to talk.
Ron was taking his shoe off.
Once again, this is the Commissioners Comedy Club. Did you want to say something else?
No, we
Good.
just wanted to wish you a
I
happy
move
Fourth.
the reading be waived, or whatever.
I'll second.
Discussion?
Nah.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Public comment?
Elizabeth, our Oberlin connection. Yes, but I think that's great. Welcome.
Elizabeth Rumix, Oberlin, at the candidates' night the other night, and I thank the two commissioners for coming, and their challengers were also there, I'm happy to say, so it was quite interesting. But at the meeting, a comment was made about how better to have communication between commissioners and the board and the townships and the city councils and so forth. And a suggestion was made that perhaps there could be evening meetings and in different venues. And I just wanted to remind us, I suppose, that this has been done somewhat in the past, and I think was very much appreciated. But I also understand that there are complications with arranging these things, so I thought, while it was a good idea, it might indeed be something that you could comment on as to how it could be done, why it isn't being done, etc.
Thank you. Remember the question the other night from Shirley when I was there? Thank you. I couldn't remember what she asked me. Yeah, one of the issues we have when it talks about, you're talking about moving meetings around the county and having them in different places, that Ohio Revised Code does not recognize those as legal meetings if they're not held.
Yeah, you know, we
Jerry, give me the legal.
Boy, everybody wants to
It's
talk
not-
on
they're-
this one.
It's not that they're not legal meetings, Commissioner, it's just that you're required to have a certain number of your regular sessions here.
in the county seat.
So
They're not counted if
when
we
you
do them
have these,
outside,
they aren't
correct?
counted
Right,
towards
you know,
that.
I mean,
They're counted?
Not towards the 50 that you're supposed to.
The road show was great when we did it, but we ran into the number. We were very close and having a problem that year with the number of meetings.
Because that's the year we did the one at the dog kennel.
Yeah, we in fact, we did, even before this administration came, we did a number of them at schools and at some of the township halls, and they were very exciting meetings, and they were well-attended. But we were running into a problem with making sure we got the 50 in the county seat because of the nuances of how we can count some of the public meetings we have, like on sewer projects and on annexations and things like that. We weren't able to count those independently as a public meeting. So we got pretty thin a couple years there with making our numbers, and so it's not impossible. And Elizabeth, as far as the logistics go, we can always work out the logistics, but the Ohio Revised Code, makes it difficult for us to go out and do that. But I can't address the thing about evening meetings. That's something for you guys to address.
But they did talk about going the road show, and I knew there was an issue we had. It brought up they didn't count towards our regular meetings because they weren't held in the county seats.
And just for those of you who are wondering about the 50 meetings, by Ohio Revised Code, we are required to meet 50 times per year. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Good morning, Nancy.
In the county seat.
In the county seat.
Nancy Fanai with Lorain Soil and Water. I thought I would update you on the NPDES Phase 2 that's going on in Lorain County. You had passed the Lorain County Erosion Sediment Control Rules, which went into effect June 29th. That has been moving very slow because there hasn't been very much construction in Lorain County. However, we have had some complaints and violations that we have went out with an Ohio EPA, and we are working on the deficiency reports back to the individuals. Also, we are working on post-construction, and they're the coordinators that are working with that. There are quite a bit of updates and revisions. I've been working with Jerry Ennis on that as well. We will meet next week to look at another draft with hopes to have a completed draft by the end of the year and submit to the commissioners in January for hopeful adoption in your resolution as well. Our office and the engineer's office will be administrators on that as well. We are working on, with the individual townships, with the riparian and wetland setbacks. Jerry and I have talked with the individual townships to see if they would be interested in passing this. This is not mandated through Ohio EPA. However, when the townships are audited, it's one of the processes that would help them look good in their audit and to help with the erosion and sediment control issues on the individual water courses within their township. We are also working with Lorain County Pipe, which has been established through my office and through Joe Wrights with the City of Avon Lake. And we're in the process of working with several other government entities to join on this bandwagon to promote public education information for Phase 2. My final thing is, I have not had put any paperwork together for this, but I am asking if the commissioners would be interested in installing a rain garden on our property that we rent to promote demonstration and also enhance the Phase 2 within the county. The monies would come from the Ohio Fund, and also it's to my understanding that the watershed coordinator has some funding through that. I will tap into that as well. As far as in-kind services, it will be our office and the engineer's office. I had spoke with them as far as their equipment. There would be paperwork as far as rerouting some of the water from the pond out front into this rain garden, and there'll be no money enhanced from the commissioners. It's just mostly in-kind services and grant monies. I look to start having the paperwork put together for that sometime in Christmas and present it to you in January with hopes of construction as long as the grant falls through in the spring.
Sounds interesting.
That's all
Questions, Commissioner? Thank you very much, Nancy.
Thank you.
Appreciate your update. David?
Good morning, Commissioners. David Ashenhurst Oberlin. I just had one little follow-up on the meetings question. As I recall, there have been actually two things. As I recall, there have been in the past some Tuesday meetings or something like that just to do little cleanups on job and family service bills or something like that. Do those count toward that 50 total?
No, and what we used to do, this goes back into the 90s. Prior to in the 80s, the board used to meet twice a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays. But there wasn't a lot of activity. So sometime in the late 90s, they went to one meeting a week. And it seems to meet the needs of the processes and procedures that work very well in the county. In the mid-90s, we used to meet on Tuesday mornings for work sessions, administrative work sessions. And at that point, those were necessary for a number of reasons. And one of the groups that we met with quite extensively was Job and Family Services on Tuesdays. But over the time and evolution, the needs for those have gone away also. So we don't have the Tuesday administrative work sessions. So that explains the Tuesday. And we haven't had those in almost 10 years.
Okay, well, as I say, I occasionally see minutes, that, you know, you're approving minutes from a meeting we didn't even know happened, and it turned out that's the explanation.
It's not
I think we
actually a
passed-
meeting, it's just a child care that he,
Right, I
Jim
sign,
signs
right?
off that the board
Okay.
has approved, but it still has to have a minute.
One of the things is the board would meet to sign for daycare payments, to make sure
Right.
that the timing went out. Well, that was kind of silly, so we just passed a resolution authorizing me to sign the daycare billing.
I
So
see.
I sign the daycare billing now, so the board doesn't need to meet. And that's been a couple of years now, too, hasn't it?
Yes.
Okay.
Well,
When
it
we
occurs
had-
to me,
When we have the emergency meeting, say for the acquisition of property, that counts.
Yes, it does.
well, so then what it also occurs to me is that
No?
No,
No?
Why wouldn't that count?
because it's a special meeting.
It starts,
could,
to- you're supposed to have 50 regular sessions, and, I mean, we can sit here and start having discussions of the nuances as to what constitutes a meeting, but the point being, David, you can't do something where you say, all right, we'll have a meeting Tuesday, we'll do one item, and that will count as one of our
I do
meetings.
understand that, and I guess I realize that it's pretty constraining, therefore, since Thanksgiving is a Thursday every year, it really only gives you 1 week that you don't have to have a regular meeting.
Well,
so the
this
whole
year, the holiday falls,
Right.
in December falls on a Thursday also, and so does the New Year.
Yeah.
All right, beginning the year, so
And you always take one off after New Year's before you have the organizational meeting and all
Right.
that stuff.
Right.
My only suggestion to this is, if you do find yourself reaching your 50 meeting limit, even if you started meeting on the road after you've reached it in any year that you do. I realize it would put it would say, well, we may go on the road in December as opposed to any time earlier in the year, because we should always have 50 meetings before we have any on the road.
Yeah,
that might even be a way to work it.
Let me point out something on the one meeting. We have folks such as yourself, but a lot of other folks that attend our meetings, and it makes it easier for them if we have one more comprehensive meeting than if we have two. So, and that also more efficiently utilizes the commissioner staff and resources, so that we're focused on the one meeting, so we don't have them sitting through two meetings and delaying some of their activities. So I'm not saying that for you. I'm just saying it because sometimes the public doesn't understand those things. The preparation of the agendas, getting the package out to the commissioners briefing the packages and making any change. It really works better for one meeting. And you'll see that most city councils only meet once, and sometimes they only meet once every other week. They may have some subcommittees that meet, but normally they only meet every other week in full session.
Mm-hmm.
So for efficiency and effectiveness, it works very, very well for us. But it does leave us tight on meeting our numbers. So there's a number of reasons that we usually only meet once a week, and I just you gave us the opportunity to put that out there. Okay.
Anybody else?
Continue to go, but
Thank you,
we can
David.
change it.
Nobody
Motion?
here? I move we adjourn into executive session for the purposes outlined by the administrator, and if Jerry has any.
Second.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Unless otherwise announced, meetings are held Thursday mornings at 9:30 at the Lorain County Administration Building, 226 Middle Avenue, 4th floor, downtown Elyria. These are public meetings, and as always, you are invited to attend.
A river runs through our land, but we don't often see this river or understand how we affect it. It's a river with great power to change the face of where we live, our land, our economy, our health, and our children's future. We need to know this river, how our actions affect it, and how we can help protect it, because this river is ours. This river is the Black River. The Black River is making a comeback. After years of devastating pollution, the changes we've made have made a difference. Now is the time, and we are the people, to make more changes and to protect what's been gained for the entire Black River watershed. The Black River drew people here, and its life-giving water gave them a reason to stay. From early Indian tribes to the first white settlers, the Black River is also the reason we became a leader in agriculture and industry, and why our population and economy boomed with shipbuilding, steel, and automobile industries. Throughout much of the 1900s, the Black River was valued mainly for drainage and disposal and its access to Lake Erie. But for those who grew up along the banks of the river, it had a different value and holds many sweet memories.
I grew up on an old beach ridge in Lorain County on a tributary of the Black River, a very small tributary. And I spent all my time outdoors, playing in the water, watching the tadpoles, realizing that things live in the habitat of the stream.
Well, I grew up on West River Road, which West River, or Black River, of course, passes through. And I spent a lifetime on, I guess you might say, on the Black River. I mean, when we were growing up, we had a dock there behind our house. We had rowboat, you know, that type of thing. Built a lot of rafts on the Black River, too.
But memories of the Black River changed dramatically.
The river, when I was a kid, was someplace where you wouldn't even go around to play, and someplace you were told by your parents to keep away from because of the dirtiness of it and the pollution. I remember even fishing wasn't a good idea. I remember the pictures of the carp with cancer pulled out all over them, and the different fish with all deformed because of the different pollutions. So I remember as a kid it was a pretty rough area.
The Black River was a rough area, a river with seriously deformed fish, with water so contaminated it was determined unsafe for swimming, or wading, or fishing.
The Black River used to be known as the River of Fish Tumors. In 1965, one of the county commissioners called the Black River the main sewer line to Lake Erie. It was one of the 43 most polluted river systems in the Great Lakes. It had horrible industrial legacy problems up near Lorain, and it always had problems with sediment just because of the type of soils that the Black River is located on.
The Black River 20 years ago was as bad as anywhere in the nation. It was on the same scale as the Cuyahoga River and the Buffalo River and the Detroit River, which were really just about as bad as you can get. So it was one of the worst rivers in the country back then, especially as far as carcinogens were concerned.
Industrial pollution had taken a heavy toll on the river, and one sign that could not be ignored was the fish population. International fish expert Roger Thoma has a long history of studying fish habitats and many years of testing on the Black River.
When we first came to the Black River, the first monitoring of the Black River by the Ohio EPA was 1982. There were areas in the river where there were no fish living. We could catch no fish. That's pretty dramatic. That takes very extreme environmental conditions to eliminate every single fish. 20 years ago, there were parts of the Black River that were an open cesspool, that were running rife with raw sewage, that were devoid of life except for the most tolerant organisms that eat sewage, such as an insect referred to as a bloodworm, bacteria, and fungus. 20 years ago, the Black River was like a witch's brew of environmental problems and environmental insults. I would characterize it as a dangerous river to be near.
Dangerous. That's the word used to describe a river that had once been rich in biodiversity, fish species, and animal life. It became a servant to industry and was nearly killed for it. April 2004. The progress has been remarkable. It was a major triumph when the Ohio Department of Health's 21-year advisory against swimming or wading in the lower Black River was finally lifted. At the same time, the river's status in regard to fish tumors was officially upgraded from impaired to in recovery. It was an event to celebrate, coming after years of change, including the closing of the U.S. Steel coking plant.
It's much better now. It's so much better. It's just almost unbelievable to those of us that were here early on. We had the coke plant closed down, which brought some improvement. And then they did a dredging in 1990 to take out the worst of the contaminated muds and sediment in the river.
To tell the story of the Black River's recovery, look back in time. You get a sense of how the damage started and the changes that began to turn it all around. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, you see the U.S. Steel plant and the American Shipbuilding Company begin to pour industrial waste into the river. You see the first sanitary sewers pumping directly into the river, causing an increase in typhoid. And for more than 70 years, you see little or no regulation of what was discharged into the Black River. When did change begin? after the Cuyahoga River caught fire and gained national attention. The first federal environmental regulation, the Clean Water Act, was enacted shortly after that. Then came the Ohio EPA doing extensive studies on the Black River. But even after the regulations and dredging and improved wastewater treatment, more needs to be done. Why? Because the problems are not just from pollutants being discharged into the river. The problems are throughout the land drained by the Black River, the area called the watershed. The Black River watershed includes the land drained by the East Branch, the West Branch, Plum Creek, French Creek, and the main stem of the river where it empties into Lake Erie. To make real improvements, we needed to deal with the entire watershed on a grassroots level, to tell the people about what was happening, and to make changes. And that's exactly what the Black River Remedial Action Plan was designed to do.
They couldn't just fix all the pipes, all the effluent coming from pipes. There had to be a change of mindset within the entire watershed. So they developed the remedial action plans to try to get to the local level, to try to get to individuals' homes and municipalities, to try to get them to take charge, to take control of how their watershed is developed and what their watershed will look like in the next 10, 15, 20 years.
The Remedial Action Plan, known as RAP, has been a great success in teaching and involving the people of the watershed.
It really offended me to find out that there was supposedly a meeting about the river and they claimed that no one showed up. And the plain dealer was saying that everyone out in the Black River area was apathetic. And it's like, well, wait a minute. It must have been one of those public meetings that you put in the fine print of the paper. If people really knew about the condition of the Black River, they would really turn out and support it, and that's what we found. We really found a lot of support. People just did not know what was going on with the river.
So what was going on? The Black River was one of 4 Ohio rivers designated as an official area of concern. But citizens on the RAP committee determined that the entire watershed should be designated an area of concern. Why? Well, because we've had serious impairments to the beneficial uses that a river should provide, with fish that are not safe to eat, and public beaches not safe for swimming or even wading. It's true, we've made remarkable progress, but we've also uncovered new problems.
With the swimming advisory that had been lifted and the incidence of deformities in fish decreasing, I think those have really been good goals for the Black River and ones to really be celebrated. But I think with that, it's learning that there are other issues out there, because those were so highlighted for such a long time that now it's really stepping up and getting excited and motivated about fixing some of the other problems that were a little bit hidden.
The hidden problems are the ones that aren't fixed by regulating or closing industries. They're called non-point sources of pollution.
I think the main problem is the non-point source issue. And when we say non-point source pollution, we mean those types of pollution that are not associated with a pipe coming out of a factory or a wastewater treatment plant, but actually the kind of runoff that comes off of streets, it comes off of your yard, it comes off of an agricultural setting, if you will, or a feedlot. And those kinds of quick runoffs can have a great deal of impact on the watershed and the river, particularly as it relates to the fish, the nutrients, and of course the habitat where the fish and the microorganisms live.
Simply put, if you can point to where the pollution is coming from, that would be a point source. Cleaning up point source problems are easy because you can locate them. Cleaning up non-point source problems are more difficult because it is so diverse, it is so watershed wide.
Besides adding pollutants to the water, we're literally losing our land. The soil in our watershed is being washed away. That's why you often see the river looking muddy and brown. In areas of the Upper Black River watershed, more than 20% of our land is eroding at a rate of at least 5 tons per acre every year. The proof is in the picture. This is the mouth of the Black River before a rain. And this is the same place after a rain. What you see is a plume of sediment emptying into Lake Erie. What you see is the soil we're losing. Over 17,000 acres eroding at excessive levels, with more than 80% of it cropland. To fix the problems in the Black River watershed, we need to understand how each of us may be causing the erosion and non-point pollution. First, take this little quiz. What percentage of the land in our Black River watershed is used for industrial purposes? Would you guess 25%, 15%, 10, or 1? How about agricultural? Maybe 20 or 30%? Or is it 40 or 50%? The truth is, only 1% of our watershed is truly industrial. Over half, 51%, is used for agriculture. Though it may be changing, our land use is still clearly dominated by farms. What about the rest of our land? 38% is rural residential, 7% is urban residential, and 3% is used for commercial purposes. The more we understand how we impact the river and the land, the better we can address non-point pollution problems. We are the people of the Black River watershed. We are farmers, homeowners, developers, public officials, and students. We are the ones who can make a difference. Farms dominate much of the landscape in our area, and how we practice farming in the watershed has a great impact. When farmers protect fields and riverbanks from erosion and use the most efficient means of fertilizer application, it keeps soil and fertilizer from overloading the river.
From a selfish point of view, it's important because the soil we lose is the topsoil, which contains more of the nutrients than the subsoil does, and so that every bit of topsoil that we can save is something that we don't have to replace by way of added fertilizer and so forth. But secondly, I think that it is just a good practice on the part of farmers to try to keep the streams and small rivers and so forth as clean as possible, because we don't want any more direct regulation than is necessary. The more we do voluntarily, the less likely we are to be forced to do it by government regulation. And farmers are fairly independent cusses. We like to whine and complain, but we don't want to be told how to work things.
When farmers work things themselves, the improvements can really make a difference.
I'd say in the last 20 years, agriculture has really addressed some of the problems that we had from years ago, as far as fertilizer runoff, manure runoff. Of course, in Lorain County now, we don't have a lot of livestock operations left. So the manure runoff, I think, is probably kind of taken care of itself because of the lack of the dairy farms and beef farms. Of course, the government has promoted filter strips along the edges of a lot of the creeks and stuff, and I think that's helped as far as runoff goes for fertilizer.
Some farmers have used measures to keep the soil on the ground in their own fields.
Well, I think that basically there are two practices. One is that we have installed grassed waterways in a number of our fields where the slope is sufficient that if we were to till through those areas, why we would experience some erosion. More importantly, the other practice is that we have gone to essentially 100% no-till, which means that we neither moldboard plow nor chisel plow any of our land. And it is through the use of a no-till drill for small seeds and a no-till corn planter that we're able to do this. And by not disturbing the soil, we tend to be able to keep it in place rather than having it erode.
One of the leading edges, I think, is this GPS technology that John Deere has been promoting for the last several years. The farmers are mapping all of their crops so they know where to put on more or less fertilizer. In other words, it's not just a blanket where we're going to put on X amount of pounds of fertilizer in a given area and it's going to help some of the poor areas, and then where the better land is, where you don't need that much fertilizer, GPS gives them the opportunity to cut back there so we don't have this excess amount of fertilizers and pesticides that are going into the streams.
Farmers, homeowners, and developers along the Black River can also use a simple and natural technique to reduce erosion, flooding, and chemical runoff. It's called a riparian border. It's a buffer strip of plants right along the water's edge, such as trees, shrubs, and some native plants and grasses. A riparian border can make a huge difference in holding the soil in place, and that soil also helps clean the water by filtering out pollutants in runoff water.
All right, one of the important things in protecting the Black River and other water systems is having a healthy riparian corridor. One of the main things about a riparian corridor would be woody vegetation, because they put down roots, which, as you can see, are pretty extensive. They hold the stream banks in place. These particular roots here have held this stream bank in place long enough for this large tree to grow here. Now, probably some of the earlier floods that we have had have washed away some of the soil from away from these roots, but it is still continuing to hold this stream bank in place, where without this tree, this whole stream bank would probably be eroded away and add to the sediment woes of the river. As we increase the impervious surfaces along the river, there are more and more water getting to the river faster. It's whisked off of our streets and our parking lots and our roadways. So the river actually rises and falls more quickly and with greater frequency than it used to. What used to be a 100-year flood may now come at 75 years, or at worst, maybe even 50 years. We're seeing flooding at a more rapid pace. Can you imagine this whole river, which I am probably 6 feet above the river surface right now, rising up so that this rag, which is probably at least 10 feet above the river surface right now, floating along the river and getting snagged by this branch. This entire river raised up 10 feet and then fell back down. This is happening more and more frequently because we have more and more impervious surface and more water is getting to the river system instead of just soaking into the soil and down into groundwater.
The loss of farmland due to development is the reason we have more streets, parking lots, and rooftops. More and more water flows into the river, giving it the power to cut right through turns in a bank. When that happens, water levels rise too high and flooding occurs. This is one example of a serious cut. On the west branch of the Black River at Hughes Road, the river is actually trying to change course due to the increased flow of runoff water. When the river wins, this bridge will be lost, and tons of valuable topsoil will be washed downriver. You can see the effects here, too, on the east branch of the river in Grafton. The water is muddy brown from too much sediment. The banks are cut with trees starting to fall, and the stream bottom is dug down to the bedrock, leaving no place for bugs and crayfish to live. That means no food for fish. So what can farmers do to reduce the amount of soil and pesticides entering the river? Well, they can plant riparian borders along creeks and the river, use methods of farming that reduce the loss of soil, and use precision methods of applying fertilizer and pesticide. We've all seen it. Land is being developed at a rapid pace in our watershed. So developers also play a key role in protecting our water quality and our land. More and more of our land is being covered by houses, streets, and parking lots. With less soil to absorb the rainwater, too much water is rushing into the Black River after a rain. That water is carrying pollutants right into the river, because there's not enough open land and plant life to act as a sponge and absorb the water. Besides pollution, the river becomes overloaded with sediment, and as a result, we see floods occurring more often, with water moving at a much greater force.
I think we just need to look at places that have already been developed, such as the Cuyahoga River, places like East Lake that receive waters that have already been developed upstream, and now they're dealing with flooding, they're dealing with siltation, and so on. This is what could happen to other rivers that are perhaps less developed right now if we don't take some action and make sure that the kind of development we're doing is sound.
So what kind of development is sound? Well, the ideal answer is simple. We maintain and develop the cities and townships that already exist. But when we do allow new developments in rural areas, what should they be like? Some answers come from the Countryside Program, a nonprofit group helping Northeast Ohio communities protect natural resources.
What we're trying to do is just help the developer understand what options may be available that will increase the environmental value of the development project. Usually that means finding ways to set aside open space in the right places to reduce the impact of that development project on the environment. So we're looking for ways to reduce impervious surface on the property, to increase the filtering and management of stormwater, to preserve habitat, and so on.
One development that's done all those things is Avonberry Lakes in Avon, developed by Joe Scaletta.
I am a home builder and land developer, and I develop conservation developments, not your typical, what I call cookie cutter subdivision, where you're building on every inch of land.
Using a concept called clustering, Avonberry homes are built closer together on smaller lots. Now that means less pavement, allowing for nearly half of the development to be open space. Stormwater is retained in natural ponds, where it's filtered through the soil and then flows slowly to the river. A 23-acre environmental preserve was left in place. It's not only a beautiful place for residents here, with walking trails, bridges, and wildlife, but the trees on the land help prevent flooding.
And I think having that area of runoff where we can still encourage the wetlands and protect the wetlands and put Mother Nature's floodplains to use as it was originally intended, flooding areas, temporary holding basins, will all benefit all of us, and conservation development is a good way to protect all of our natural resources, certainly Black River.
The home buyers are more sophisticated today, and they're also concerned about the environment when they're building a new home. The problem is the codes of most cities are outdated, antiquated. They have large lots, large streets, and don't take any consideration of the aspects of the land. They just say we want 150 by 150 foot lot, we want 200 feet frontage, whatever it is, and by doing that, a developer has to come in and clear cut the entire site.
We need to change the way we think of developments, and for certain the public needs to demand land use codes that protect the environment and give us a better quality of life in our neighborhoods.
There's a drawbridge mentality. The last person in the township wants the drawbridge to come up. That's the last, we're the last ones, you know, and by law we cannot say no more development here. All we can do is control it.
Lorain County is on a verge of a lot of development coming from the west from Cleveland. And I think we have the opportunity now to establish those land use practices that we're not going to see just subdivision after subdivision without green space, without water quality protection and riparian zone protection. If we can do that now, I think we're going to really help the river in the next 20 years.
I think the problem with most homeowners is they really don't understand that what they do has an impact. I think they see one small or large property and feel they're just a small part of the big puzzle, and what they do really makes no difference. And I think somehow we all need to understand more as individuals, what impact we really do have.
How do homeowners impact soil erosion and water quality? With our landscaping practices, septic systems, and chemicals used on lawns and flower beds.
If one person dumps a little fertilizer or a little chemical on his lawn, it's probably not a big deal to the water that comes out at the mouth of the Black River. But if 1,000 or 1,500 or all the other people along the same watershed do the same thing, it's a mammoth difference.
Home sewage treatment can also make a mammoth difference. In rural areas without sanitary sewer systems, each home treats sewage individually with underground septic tanks. These tanks were often installed as long ago as the 1930s and 40s. Even 20-year-old systems are overloaded with today's modern appliances, like dishwashers. Many of our septic systems are now outdated and usually not maintained by homeowners.
They need to be pumped out periodically. There are motors in them, moving parts, aerators. Those need to be maintained, run properly so that the water coming out on the clean side is in fact clean.
In many cases, that water coming out of the older septic systems is not clean, and that means human waste is going directly from our septic systems into the river.
The new homeowners I don't think impact it very much because all the sewage systems are on lot. In the old homes where these sewage systems aren't maintained properly, some of them have direct outlets to the river or to creeks and streams that go to the river, and they would cause a lot of untreated sewage or effluent to go there.
The general thought is if my toilet flushes, then my system's working. But what is happening is the wastewater is going down our drains from our home into the tank, and the tank is discharging to a pipe, and the pipe is going to a stream that goes to the Black River, that goes to Lake Erie, and it's basically a direct shot.
Septic systems aren't a priority to the homeowner until they back up or fail. Failing means that somewhere in your yard you've got a sewage water effluent bubbling out, and then they panic. Sometimes homeowners try to fix it themselves by taking a direct line to the creek or river, and of course that's terrible, but there's just a lack of education, a lack of desire to know about it and do anything with it until it's a problem. And as long as there's not a density of them and they're spread out, it's not as bad, but you get into a highly developed area where the houses are close together, and it would be much worse. Now everything is concentrated on lot. Your sewage system is treated on lot and it is disposed on lot, where it actually soaks into the ground by way of an at-grade system or a Wisconsin mound, which the sewage is pumped up into a large amount of sand and it filters down through it. So it never leaves your lot, and that way it doesn't impact the river at all.
What's the solution for homeowners with old sewage treatment systems? They should maintain or upgrade what they have, and where it's possible, install sanitary sewers. Landscaping is another way homeowners impact our watershed. Just like farmers, homeowners need to plant riparian borders to hold soil in place along the edge of ponds, creeks, and the river itself. Planting grass right up to the edge of the water does not hold the soil in place. The roots are too shallow. And if nothing holds the soil in place, especially after a rain, the riverbank gets washed away. Besides erosion of the land and loss of soil, it also causes overload of sediment in the river. Nooks and crannies on the river bottom become blanketed with silt, and this literally suffocates the bugs that fish eat and can clog fish gills. So what can homeowners do? Well, these are simple rules for landscaping to protect our watershed. Plant trees and shrubs along the water's edge, not grass. Don't mow up to the riverbank, and don't dump grass clippings in the river. Some homeowners have even left natural areas on their property. Dane Adams wanted to attract birds and wildlife, but there's another benefit we can all share.
And so as water runoff in that area filters through the wetland and then drains out, the plants and the microhabitat there tend to filter that water and make it cleaner going into the river.
Working together, we can improve and protect our watershed. People from the townships and the cities Environmental groups, farmers, and homeowners are getting together to talk about the problems and share solutions on an advisory committee.
It's great to bring all of these players together at the table, which doesn't seem to happen a lot, that you get township trustees along with city people, along with concerned citizens, so you kind of run the gamut with concerns that are out there, and you know, we don't want to be duplicating efforts.
The word is getting out that improving and protecting the Black River watershed demands voluntary effort, and in some cases, new regulations, such as how we handle stormwater in our communities.
The things that are important to us is certainly stormwater management, proper control and method of that. What takes place in the extreme southern part of Lorain County, a higher elevation, all of that stormwater flows down to places like Amherst and Lorain, and their development, if not handled properly in terms of the additional stormwater runoff, will cause flooding downstream towards the north here.
Too often in the past, one city would focus on their needs and, for example, stormwater. And they thought the solution to the stormwater was to get the water away as soon as possible, as quickly as possible. When you do that, all you do is create headaches for the person downstream. You destroy habitat and you just transfer your problems to the community next door, and you're not being a good neighbor. So I think there needs to be a way where communities can communicate, can work together on stormwater problems, so they're not creating headaches for one another and costly headaches, really, to save money overall.
In planning for new developments within municipalities and the city officials must consider how much of that land is going to be covered by impervious surfaces. Impervious surfaces will not allow water to transfer down into the soil and be naturally cleansed.
City and township officials can also help bring about something new to many of us: recreational use of the Black River.
The amount of wood ducks and things that nest along it, and like I say, the raccoons, herons, the deer frequent it, cross it. It's beautiful, but as far as water sports or fishing, it's not used like rivers in other states or different places. Most people think that the Black River is just a drainage, and it's not.
In the next 20 years, I think you're going to have a lot more recreational use of the Black River and Lake Erie. Hopefully we will start having open space, public, accessible locations so that public can come and look like we are here today at this beautiful scenery, and to really enjoy the benefits of places like the Black River.
The future of the Black River watershed is in the hands of the young. Students need to understand the river and have the joy of going right to the water.
This has been the first year that I've been teaching that the warning has been lifted and it was okay, you know, to get into it. We've done the waders, etc., but a lot of them just like to just get in it, and that's the fun of it, you know, like really exploring it and looking around it and seeing what they can see. Well, one of the first things I want them to understand is the concept of watershed and where they live in respect to that, that they are in the Black River watershed, etc. Elyria High School actually borders the river. We can see the river from our parking lot. And with some groups, like environmental groups, etc., we've gone down and we've seen like some of the activity, evidence of the activity. We've done cleanups, we've done water quality studies down at the river.
Some of us got waders, some of us just went in the water, and Miss Luck is actually a really good teacher because she would sit there and she'd just point out all this stuff to us. As a teenager, we always go up in the rocks, just hiking, everything. We go behind the falls and all that. But in ecology, we did learn a lot. I learned, like, people digging up dirt, it'll cause silt in the river, and then the fish will breathe it in, and that's a really big problem, especially with the Black River. The fish will breathe it in, and then they'll just die.
I think that through the class, I actually learned more than I ever knew before, because I always have been, like, interested in, like, being involved with, like, the environment, but I didn't really know a whole lot about it.
And I think it's cool because I think, especially for high school students, if you visibly learn, you know what I mean, like visually, I think you soak it in better, you know what I mean? Like, you can be talking about it in the classroom, taking notes about it, but then when you come down here and she's sitting there and explaining things, like even the history.
Since you live here, you don't really think about it like as it makes a difference if you keep around here clean too, you know? But then afterwards I thought about that, like when I go down here now, I look at the trash and stuff and I think about that kind of thing and like keeping it clean around here.
I think if you learn more about it and you realize what it's doing to the river, then obviously you're gonna stop. Like us, how much we learn, it makes you think twice about, like you said, just throwing something on the ground or just your everyday lifestyle. It really does make you change, makes you think.
There is a lot of gloom and doom in environmental studies because humans have impacted the planet so greatly. But on the other hand, when they can see studies and they can actually, see data about water quality, that things have changed. Lake Erie itself, it's changed tremendously in my lifetime. Then it gives them a reason to modify practices or to, just live like good stewards of the earth because it can make a difference, and it does.
We are making a difference. After improvements to Illyria's wastewater collection system and upgrades at the Grafton wastewater treatment plant, the U.S. EPA determined that organisms living at the bottom of the East Branch of the Black River have fully recovered. We were the first remedial action plan in Ohio to show significant improvement, and now we're the first RAP on the U.S. side of the Great Lakes to completely restore an impairment in a portion of the watershed.
This shows the potential that the East Branch can achieve if the bottom-dwelling creatures, if the first rung on the food ladder can improve to such an extent that they're exceptional, they're considered exceptional. It shows the potential for the East Branch to achieve great things even in the fish habitat and other wildlife habitat around the subwatershed.
The improvements are incredible, but we don't want to stop there. We want to keep going. But I don't think we're at that step yet where everybody realizes that their farm or their septic tank could be causing the river down here in Lorain to be a little more cloudy than the nice blue tones that we like to see here.
We must change our mindset. We must live responsibly. We must leave riparian corridors, little buffer systems along the watersheds. We must try to maintain our septic tanks. We must develop neighborhoods responsibly.
I think if people have personal contact, whether it's recreational or any other interactions with the river, that they definitely have a much closer connection and come to realize the impact of their actions on the watershed. Definitely the out of sight, out of mind thing has got to go by the wayside. People really need to be reconnected and get it that they are a part of this whole picture.
We're all in this together, the people of the Black River watershed. This is our river. This is our responsibility.